Hi, you're listening to the Connect Your Health to Life coaching podcast. I'm your host, Seth Lusk. I am a self-image coach and empowerment coach with a decade-long background in working in the health, fitness, and nutrition industry. If you're anything like I was, or the way that my clients currently are, then you might be struggling with body image issues, self-image issues, or issues with confidence. You might be trying to figure out why you can't take the ideas that you have for living your healthiest and most fulfilling life and turn them into lifelong actions. So join me in this podcast as we dive in deep on topics of mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual health. We're going to look from the perspective of an authentic and empowering mindset, and from self-awareness, self-love, and of course, how we can start taking authentic self-action towards living that healthy and fulfilling life that you know you're here to live. I'm going to bust through some of the illusions and myths that we've all been taught to believe along the way and offer you confidence and clarity. I'm so excited to have you on this journey with me. So the only question is, are you ready to find out how you can start living your most authentic and fulfilling life once and for all? Then let's get started, shall we? Hello everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. For those of you listening for the first time, welcome. So we have a very interesting topic today, as with all topics that I cover on my podcast, I think. But this one I'm really excited to bring to you because usually when I'm making these podcasts, I'm going based on trends that I see in my sessions with my clients and in friends that I talk with. And I ask you guys that listening to this podcast to leave me your feedback, your comments. And there are several reasons why I ask for this. Number one, these feedbacks and comments help for other people to find the podcast. But number two, they give me an idea of where my listeners are so that I can sort of cater the information that I put into the podcast to really reach people and help them in the way that they want the help the most. So, that being said, one of the members of my team that helps me with creating my social media content and a lot of the content that I just put out online spoke up today and was asked me to cover a particular topic in the podcast. I already had an outline made for this week, and I was going to do a podcast on one particular topic that I had decided this would be interesting to talk about. And he was like, hey, how do you feel about covering this topic? And I was like, hell yes, let's do it. So today's topic, it was actually suggested to me by someone else. And so therefore I'm excited to cover it because it means that it is something that not only do I think people are interested in, but I'm being told that people are interested in hearing about. And so we're going to talk today a lot about the difference between, or the field of aesthetics and health and our body image. And I want to start off by talking, maybe you don't know what aesthetics is. So what aesthetics is supposed to be is a set of principles concerned with the nature and appreciation of beauty. And now, if we look in the health and fitness industry today, how we see aesthetics showing up is in sort of like bodybuilding competitions or bikini competitions or, like Miss America pageants and stuff like this. These sort of beauty pageants or pageants involving the sculpting and shaping of the human body. So yeah, the field of aesthetics. What is supposed to be about the appreciation of beauty, in the modern day, I've seen it showing up more as like defining what beauty has to be for everybody and finding a particular body type and saying, this is what is beautiful, this is what you should attain to look like, and if you don't look like this, you're not beautiful. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today because it's also started to affect people's approach to their health. And we're going to look at how that is and why that is. The topic of, or the title of today's episode is Feel Good, Look Good. And if you're part of my social media group on Instagram or on Facebook, you may have seen a post that I did earlier actually the end of last week in my Facebook group, where I asked everyone about this phrase that I hear commonly used in the health and fitness industry of look good, feel good. And what they're trying to imply is that if you look good, you feel good. And while there is a part of this statement that is true, I think saying it in this way is having an effect on a lot of people's body image that I'm not saying it was intended, but we need to become aware of it. So I'm rephrasing it as feel good, look good. And we're going to look at what that means today and why it is that I think that it's important that we look at it from the perspective of feel good, look good, as opposed to look good, feel good. So we've got a lot to dive into today, my friends. We're gonna jump into some deep stuff as usual, and this is going to be one of those episodes that I'm going to ask you to have an open mind and be ready to break apart some illusions that you may have been buying into for a very long time. Some of this is going to be uncomfortable to look at, and that's okay. Stick with me here. So before we dive into the rest of the contents of today's episode, I want to introduce you all to a new podcasting buddy that I made living in Australia. So he's got his own podcast called Desperately Seeking, and he is a gay male living in Australia who is on a quest to find his first boyfriend. He made contact with me when he found my podcast show and was interested in doing some cross-advertising, and he's actually going to be appearing on my podcast show here in the near future. I'm really excited to have him. We're going to talk about some interesting stuff as far as dating in the gay world and both of our experiences with that, some stories, some things that we see happening in the world of the gay dating scene that we want to talk about. So it's going to be a fun episode. So I want to introduce you all to him and his podcast today. I've got a short clip here of an advertisement for his podcast. Have a listen and then go check it out. It's very entertaining. He has one of the most infectious laughs, and his journey through the dating scene is just, it's entertaining and fun to listen to, as well as to hear him growing in his experience of dating. So have a listen to this advertisement and then go check out his podcast and subscribe. Again, it's called Desperately Seeking. So enjoy the advertisement here, and we'll be right back with more content from me.
Hello, hello, hello. My name is Jono, and I am the world's worst date. Legit, guys are fleeing from me. So naturally, I made a podcast about the search for my first boyfriend and called it Desperately Seeking. Each episode, I kiki with my friends about my latest date stories, and they let me know where I stuffed it up along the way. I mean, if I want to find Mr. Right, then I need to know what I'm doing wrong, right? Join the fun and laugh at my misfortune. Download Desperately Seeking wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, welcome back to the episode, you all. Let's continue with the information on the topic of today. Feel good, look good. All right, so we're going to start off with talking about our body, the body that you are living in, okay? So your body is an organism. I want you to recognize that first and foremost. Your body is not you. You are what dwells in that body. You are what animates that body. You are what that body gets to consciously experience the world through. And your body is what you experience and sense the world through. I want you to consider the fact that your body was designed for you to experience the world through it and with it. In other words, your body needs you, and you need it. It is the one relationship that you will have for your entire life. You and your body. And I want you to notice that there's that distinction. There is you and there is your body. It's not the same thing. That is an important thing to recognize. And as with all long-term relationships, there are some elements that are essential to the health of this relationship. Elements such as honesty, trust, balance, and communication are so essential to the survival of this relationship in a healthy manner. These same basic elements of a relationship that we form with other human beings are necessary for us to deepen and continue our relationship with our body. And just like a relationship with another person, when we allow for these aspects of the relationship to slip through the cracks, we also allow for that relationship to loosen, devolve, dissolve, and to become less deepened until the relationship starts to become dysfunctional. And eventually that relationship can evolve to a level of dysfunction that makes the relationship unbearable. And it saddens me to say that what I see in the world today with a lot of people is that they are in an unbearable relationship with their own bodies. The one relationship that they will have for their entire life, they have allowed to become unbearable. Now, I want to say that this is not to say that if we maintain a great relationship with our body, that you'll just live forever and never get sick. Because I know that some people automatically are going to jump to that idea because I've heard other people say it before. So I want to be clear that I am not trying to say that. Because just like in all relationships that we have with other people, there are going to be bumps in the road. But with choice, the parts of the relationship that we can navigate those obstacles with together, the elements of honesty, trust, communication, balance, and consistency, these will help us navigate those bumps. So I'm not trying to say that if someone gets sick or that if someone dies, that it's because their relationship with their body was dysfunctional. No, I'm not trying to say that. So I want to be clear about that up front. Your body is an organism. And this organism begins the process of dying at the moment of conception. That's just part of the deal of being a human. And that's not to be morbid or sad. This is just part of the biology. The moment that we are conceived and we start to grow as a human being, we're also beginning the process of death. That's just part of the cycle of human life. So what I am trying to say here is that your experience of the relationship with your body and its experience of its relationship with you are determined by choices that you will make. It's not just a given. It's not just a given that you and your body will have a great relationship. These are choices that we have to make. And I want you to recognize that your body wants to live. Your body wants to feel good and to be healthy. And it wants to experience the consciousness of life through you and with you. And you want to experience being conscious by being in that body and living out that consciousness through its biological design with all of its senses and its ability to move and all of the intricacies of the human body that are so amazing. You are here to experience your consciousness through that biological design. And it is here to experience consciousness through you. So, what I want to do is talk about this relationship when it comes to building a healthy life for ourselves, because this is really what we all want. We're all going to look at it from this current trend in the fitness industry of this look good, feel good that we keep hearing. And what I want to say is that because we're going at our approach to living a healthy life from that perspective, it's created a lot of dysfunction over the last few decades. And I want to bring this idea into question today. This idea of look good, feel good, and that is how we're supposed to approach our relationship with our body and our quest for health. I want us to bring into question if this sort of idea or concept of look good, feel good, does it serve us entirely? Or when we adopt this perspective, are we actually perpetuating a societal norm that's creating a lot of dysfunction in our relationship with our body? And what I want to bring into question is, do we want to start dismantling this norm individually and together as a society? I think yes. I think yes, we do. But I don't want you to get me wrong. I'm not saying that we can't look good. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't want to look good. And I'm not saying that we can't appreciate beauty, which is what the idea of aesthetics is supposed to be about. It is about how we appreciate and perceive beauty. But when it comes to how we each look at our own bodies, and when it comes to our health, and how we connect to it, and live in our bodies, I want to say that the way that we're going about it now we're doing it with this sort of passive allowance. We passively allow our idea of what looks good to be decided for us by social norms and by other people. And then what we do is we act like we have to fit that image before we're allowed to believe that we look good. And what I want us to look at is how this is such a disempowering space. We're so disempowered when we live from that idea of that this is what looks good, and if I don't look like that, then I am not allowed to believe that I look good. And it places us in the role of victim in our own concept of what looks good. When in reality, what we're not choosing to recognize is that we have the power to decide this for ourselves here. And what's really happening is that we are turning down our own opportunity to decide this for ourselves. We're literally choosing to give that away. So I really want us to consider how much the idea of look good, feel good pushes many people to take action towards what they think is living a healthy life, but that are in fact not bringing them closer to health. This idea is causing people to take actions that's not pushing them closer to health. Instead, these actions are what's bringing them closer to this very destructive and very unhealthy image of their body, and a very disconnected and dysfunctional relationship with it. From what I have seen in my life, and in the life of many of my clients, there's some serious work to be done here. And there's some awareness that needs to be created, and that's what I want to get started on doing here today. I want to look at the idea first of what is looking good. And I want to start this by the definition of the word look. Because you see, we treat the word look so passively when we look at it this way. But here's the definition of the word look. The definition is to think of or regard in a specified way, or the act of directing one's gaze in order to see something. I want you to notice how much power and decision goes into these definitions here. There is a lot of choice here that the person that is taking the action of looking has. There's a lot of power and choice there. But we say the words look good as if it's this passive thing that we do, and that something outside of us lets us know if we are doing it right. And I want us to really start paying attention to the fact that the word look has a lot of decision and power in the person that is taking the action, not the other way around. Think about that. We try to fit a certain image of what some concept outside of us says looks good. We try to appear as that image and then hope that we, quote unquote, look good as if it's a passive action. And all the while we're waiting for something outside of us to validate that, yes, you look good now. But the definition of the word look is that we direct with intention how we gaze at or try to perceive something. In the act of looking, it is the responsibility of the person doing the looking to decide what they are trying to see. Think about that. Really, really think about that. I want to look at this concept of looking good as the socially normative way that we approach it. And I want to break apart some of the illusions here for you. There are a ton of ways that we could do this. I mean, like, really, when I was trying to put together my outline for this podcast, I was like, it took me almost an entire day just to think about how I want to approach this, because there's so many ways I can take. So when we try to dive into the concept of looking good, we could debate this and talk about this for days and days and days and try to prove who's right or wrong here. But I'm here to say what I want to do here is actually the opposite. I want to say that looking good does not, in fact, actually have a right or wrong. That looking good is a very fluid approach that allows the perceiver a lot of power that we are not allowing ourselves to own. So I don't want to get into trying to debate what looks good as right or wrong, blah, 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 blah. I'm actually wanting to do the exact opposite. So I'm going to take the route that I find particularly insightful and useful to start dismantling this. And I want to start by looking at the history of quote-unquote looking good. And I want to particularly what I want to look at in particular is how much the social normative definition of this looking good changes on a continual basis. And I want to look at a few of the factors that kind of play into this constant change and evolution of what, looks good. And I want us to pay attention to the fact that there are so many factors that are involved in this. And for the sake of this podcast, we're not going to be able to get to all of them because, again, I'd be here for days. But I want to look at it and what all of this means for us in our quest for living a healthy life in which we feel good in our bodies, which is really what our goal is here, is that we want to live a healthy life in which we feel good inside of our bodies. So let's start looking at this. Let's look at the history of looking good. Throughout history, we can kind of see that this idea of what looks good is defined by lots of things, but I want to look at things like the culture, the place, the present time, the prevalent goals of the society at the time, and what the society believes is possible for the human body. These are just a few of the factors that play into this. And these factors play a huge role in what a person will then believe looks good if they take a passive approach in their life of what looks good. Then there's also our biology, the desire to be healthy. And for some, there's also the biology of the desire to procreate, which, by the way, we're now discovering that not all humans have that desire and that it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think a little of awareness here and having some care for how we populate this planet is kind of necessary. I think so. So there are a few of us noticing and choosing to not create kids of our own, but instead choose to parent through the lives of children that are already on this planet who need someone in the role of mentor or sort of parenting to provide things for them that they're not getting. And I think this is a beautiful thing. The idea of it takes a community to raise a child comes to mind when I think of this. But anyways, back to the idea of looking good. Some people have the desire to procreate, and for those who recognize that desire, it will also have an effect on how that person defines looking good. Certain factors that might come into play here will be physical traits that they want to carry on in their children, or physical traits that indicate an increased chance of their offspring's survival and thriving, or traits that indicate fertility in the other person that they may want to have as their mate. Now, even here, these traits are based on each individual person's perspective on what traits they look at as being important and advantageous. So even here, there isn't really a concrete definition of looking good or what is healthy, although pop culture tries to imply otherwise constantly. So these traits will come into play when a person chooses what looks good in another person when choosing a mate to have kids with. And people will really, they'll try and choose what they perceive as being healthy, in a sense, as being what is attractive to them. But here again is, like I said, this is where things start to get hazy. And where society tries to imply that things are very concrete and certain, the reality is that we have a lot of choice here. Because what is quote-unquote healthy is a concept that is also constantly changing throughout time. What I want to say is that science still does not know with 100% certainty all of what quote-unquote healthy is for the human body. We're constantly trying to get closer, and we're sort of figuring it out as we go. And as with all things, and really with all things, we're searching for that certainty there. And that's kind of what science is trying to do. And they're doing it through this sort of careful trial and error method. And I'm not trying to discredit science here, because I think science is making a lot of huge strides in the direction of uncovering the complexities and the amazingness of the human body and what health means for the human body. But the takeaway here is that the definition of healthy is a little bit more fluid than I think most of us are comfortable with accepting. And I think this goes back to, if you remember, that our primitive brain loves certainty. And so many of us look for answers to our health in the scientific community, in the health and fitness and nutrition community, with the goal of trying to find that certainty in our mind. And I believe this contributes to why we have so many misguided social norms surrounding the definition of health and therefore what quote-unquote looks healthy and looks good. So that brings us back to looking good. What this means for us is that because we will consciously and subconsciously choose what quote-unquote looks good for us and for others based on what we strongly believe is quote-unquote healthy, then our perception of looking good is very fluid here. It's very fluid. And recently, because of this, it's taken this interesting twist that I personally believe is creating a massive emotional and mental suffering for a lot of people. And I think it's also starting to harm a lot of people's physical health. Actually, no, I'm not even going to say I think it. I see it happening. It's happening. And it's playing a huge part in what is destroying this precious relationship between ourselves and our bodies that I talked about earlier. So I'm going to explain this, and it's going to require that we go back into history. So let's go back. I'm just going to pick a random time here. Let's go back to the 1400s, let's just say. Back then, food scarcity still existed, which means that people were still dying of diseases associated with malnourishment quite frequently, or having not enough food, or not having enough of particular kinds of food that then led to vitamin and mineral deficiencies, etc. So, I want you to do me a favor here. Go to the Googles, and I want you to look up beautiful woman 1400s painting. Just look it up. And look at the images that come up. A lot of the women that you will find in these pictures, they're going to have these very full-looking faces, kind of round faces. In a lot of the pictures that they show their body, they have these like almost larger-than-life looking hips. And I'm not sure if this is what they look like in real life or if this is just the paintings. But also in these paintings, you're going to notice that these women have very fair skin. They have full cheeks, large hips. And what I want you to notice is that these were indicators of beauty to most people in that time. And even if you look at the art of poetry in that time, and you look at poetry of men describing beautiful women, you'll find a lot of the same kind of descriptions, talking about fair skin and full lips and full cheeks and round faces and large hips. And, they'll use various words to describe this. Because you see, in this time, fair skin meant that you were successful enough in life, or wealthy enough in life, or well off enough in life to stay out of the sun, which meant that you weren't having to do manual labor, which meant that you were conserving energy, and that you were therefore less likely to die from diseases of overwork and malnourishment. It meant that you were successful enough in life to stay inside and feed yourself well, basically. And so therefore, at that time, that was perceived as beautiful, because these people were, quote-unquote, healthy to the perception of the time, because these people were focused on staying away from malnourishment. The full cheeks meant that the body was able to put on weight that could sustain a person through food scarcity, like a famine, that was very likely to occur in that time. And it meant that you were healthy from the perspective of the fact that you weren't about to starve to death, which was a common fear and possibility in the 1400s. And the larger hips of a woman meant that the woman appeared to be able to bear children and sustain them through to a healthy birth, even if maybe food scarcity may have happened during the pregnancy. And we can go on and on and on and describe here how, because of the perception of health at the time and because of food scarcity at the time, how this played a role in that. But let's just leave it there. And what I want to do now is let's fast forward to the 21st century, where we are today. And we're going to look at the first world, because And it saddens me to say this, but we still have not chosen to solve for food scarcity in all of the third world. And I feel that we need to make this a priority, but that's off topic for today. So we're going to stick with looking at the first world here when we go about this discussion. So we're in the 21st century and we're looking at the developed world. And now we see diseases that are related to overconsumption and not enough activity. Diseases such as diabetes, heart disease, obesity, certain cancers, lung disease, liver disease, diseases of the eyes from over-consuming artificial lights from phone screens, televisions, and computers. Diseases of overconsumption of other people's opinions are even showing up in our emotional health and mental health. So diseases of overconsumption are popping up literally everywhere in the 21st century. So I want you to go back to Google and I want you to look up Beautiful Woman or Beautiful Women 2021. So Beautiful Women 2021. And what I want you to notice is that you're going to find picture after picture after picture of thin women with dainty features. You're going to see small noses, protruding high cheekbones, defined and delicate jawlines, defined and delicate necks and collarbones, tiny itty-bitty waists. All of these features that are associated with not over-consuming things like food or alcohol and not over-consuming inactivity. I know that sounds a bit strange to say, but yeah, for the sake of this argument, we're going to say over-consuming inactivity. So basically not being active. So here's what's strange here. The idea of big hips, a big butt, and large breasts, as well as full lips, are still being seen as a sign of beauty. And you'll see that these sort of features, when you look at a lot of female models today, these features are being highlighted. Now, I would suggest that most of these photos are probably very photoshopped to suggest that these very thin women have very full lips and very full breasts and very full hips and butts while they're so tiny and dainty and thin and ripped. Or they've had plastic surgery. Because I want you to think about this. So in 2021, we see women as being beautiful who we think they look like they're not suffering from diseases of overconsumption. And we do this so much so that we take it to this extreme look of thinness that for most bodies, most female bodies, it would require a level of serious restraint from food to achieve. And I would say arguably that this level of restraint is to a level of unhealthy restraint. Either that, or they're going to just have to exercise a ton to achieve this look if they're not restraining themselves from food, or both. And I would say arguably that this is also not a healthy way to approach it, the amount of exercise. But here's the other thing. This image of beauty also suggests that while we want these women to exercise the extreme restraint from overconsumption, we still expect these women to retain full breasts, full lips, full hips, and full butts. And I want you to recognize here that these features, will naturally shrink in size as a woman loses weight. And me, having my decade-long background in personal training, I want you to understand how much I saw this happen over and over again. These women wanted to get thin, but they were like, "Oh, but please don't make my butt too small, or please don't make me lose my boobs." And I want you to understand how absurd this approach and standard is. Basically, if we look at this, the ideal image now that we have of a beautiful woman, if we're being completely honest, it's completely unnatural. It's so unnatural. Please look emaciated, but at the same time, have the butts, hips, lips, and boobs of a woman that overeats. Think about that. Think about the distortion there that this leads to. And this leads to a whole host of problems involving plastic surgeries, eating disorders, overexercising, body dysmorphia, a whole range of mood disorders, undefined self-image, and a very low self-esteem. But here's the other thing. And I don't want to offend anybody here, so stick with me. This is not my intention, but it doesn't stop with women. It doesn't stop with women, and I think we do a serious disservice to humanity when we focus on eating disorders and body dysmorphia only in women. I want you to go back to Google right now, and I want you to look up Sexy Men 2021. And I want to say that myself as a gay male, and in the gay scene with how obsessed men are with sexuality in the body, that as a gay male, I have struggled with my body image due to buying into this image that you're going to see right now all over Google. That is the picture of what a good-looking or sexy man looks like. So look it up. Look up Sexy Man 2021. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you what you're going to find on there will be picture after picture of men with these chiseled abs, bulging veins, striated muscle definition, itty-bitty tiny waistlines, defined jaws, high protruding cheekbones, all signs of not over-consuming. But at the same time, these men all have huge, full muscles. And I want you to recognize these muscles are something that is achieved by exercising and consuming enough calories to build those muscles. They are not just genetically predispositioned in men unless you are someone who is predispositioned to be a mesomorph body type, which, by the way, is a body type that statistically only about 7% of men have the genetics for. The rest of men have to exercise like crazy to achieve that body type, and with this exercise, have to eat more calories to fuel that exercise and build muscle. But these extra calories mean fat storage for someone who has a natural endomorph body type, which is the body type that about 60% of men are genetically born with. Or the rest of us, ectomorphs, which I myself was born with, which means that we struggle with putting on weight both in fat and in muscle. So what I want to say is that these extra calories will cause fat storage in the vast majority of men because of their body type and how it is genetically prefers to do this with excess calories, to put on body fat. But then we go about demonizing this design of the body and its tendency to do that. And what I think is so ironic is that in the 1400s, this body type would be celebrated as the picture of health because you can eat far less and store more energy, so you're less likely to starve during famine. So the point that I want you to get is this. I want you to see how this image of looking good leads to a very unnatural idea for most men of what their body is supposed to look like, to be a sexy man, or to look good as a man. And what I think is that we focus a lot on the female struggle to attain these unrealistic body images of beauty. And what I want to say is that I completely agree and I empathize here, and we need to look at that because it is ridiculous. As I said just a minute ago, this idea that women are supposed to be so itty-bitty, tiny, and ripped, and then still have huge boobs and a huge butt and huge hips and full lips, it's absurd. But what I want to say is that I also feel like we have done an extreme detriment to humanity by allowing the equal struggle of the male body image to slip through the cracks by focusing on just how this affects women. And I know a lot of people will disagree with me here because they see men as always having the advantage in our society, and in a lot of ways, society has given men an advantage. And maybe a lot of people feel that because of this, it's somehow justified to allow the male struggle with body image to take a back seat and almost seem laughable to bring up. But I promise that this is not a laughing matter. And I can say as someone who struggled with body dysmorphia and someone who has struggled with eating disorders that it deserves equal attention here. If we truly want to take apart this destructive nature in our society to put unrealistic pressures on people to look one way in order for them to be quote-unquote allowed to consider themselves as looking good so that they're quote-unquote allowed to feel good about their bodies, then we need to look at both. We need to look at both how this affects men and women. I personally know myself and a lot of men suffering in their relationship with themselves and their body. And therefore, they're suffering in their relationships with other people. I see even how this dysfunctional relationship with their own bodies becomes a source of why they objectify women in their bodies and their criteria that they have for women in their bodies. It's because their own harsh judgment of their body becomes the harsh judgment that they then place on the woman that they're going to look at as being their mate. Basically, they see, well, if I have to work my butt off in the gym to look like this, then the woman that I marry should also have to struggle and suffer with her body image, and vice versa. I see women doing this. Their harsh criteria of their own body becomes their judgmental criteria for how they look at men and their bodies. So, my friends, what I want to say is this cycle has to be dismantled somewhere if we want to break free from this destructive pattern in society. So today, I want us to look at the struggle as being equal. I want to break through the stigma that men don't struggle with body image and trying to keep men to be silent about it. Men don't talk about it as much. And it's been swept under the rug and almost even been made socially acceptable that men will struggle with this. I mean, after all, because being a man is about sports and going to the gym to become a man. So spending hours in the gym to build that bod that everyone loves and thinks is so sexy, that's just part of being a man, right? At least that's what the current culture is going to try and say that you should subscribe to. But I'm going to say emphatically that this is false and contributes greatly to what a lot of people label as toxic masculinity. So, for the sake of this podcast, women, men, boys, girls, we are all in the same boat here. We are all in the same boat and we are struggling in this together. So I want you to reach across the aisle and grab a hand because your sisters and brothers are in this with you. I promise they are. And body image has become a nightmare for all of us in the 21st century. All of us. I mean, I cannot emphasize that enough. So the question that I have here is this. We want health, right? We want the healthy life. I'm going to say yes is the answer. So if we go about this quest from the idea of look good, feel good, the perspective that the fitness industry keeps throwing at us, and we go online and try and find out what does looking good look like, because, you know, we want to fit in and be attractive to what other people say, and we want someone to love us and someone to validate the fact that we look good enough to be lovable so we can finally feel good enough. And if we do that, then are we really going after health? As I've said before in previous episodes, choosing to see that we are lovable and attractive, choosing to know that we are lovable, this is something that we have to pick for ourselves. But this idea of look good, feel good causes us to look out there for a definition of what looks good, and then again look out there for validation that we finally reached it. So if we look out there at online or in magazines or for popular opinion for the answer of what looks good, and we try to become that, will we be building a healthy life? I'm going to say no. Will we be building a healthy relationship with our body? I'm going to say no, we won't. And in my experience, and what I've witnessed in myself and in other people, is that it actually breeds something very unhealthy in our habits. And it breeds some serious distrust in our most precious relationship with our bodies. I see this building resistance in our relationships with our bodies and the openness and the communication that our body is asking for. I see this building resentment where the body is asking for love in the relationship. And I see this building blame and shame where the body is asking for trust and acceptance in our relationship with it. That's what I see happening because of this look good, feel good mentality. Remember, your body is a biological organism. It is biologically designed to want to survive. And it is looking to you to take care of it and to help it do just that. It was given to you for you to live in and care for, not against you. So if you're constantly looking at it with this disgust and not enoughness and with this, it needs to look better, it needs to be better, or looking at it with this frustration or shame, then you're slowly severing the communication ties in your relationship with your body. You're just slowly getting rid of them. You're slowly severing the trust, the openness, the balance. It's all slowly dissolving by you making the choice to look at your body in this way. And we need to become aware of this. We need to open our eyes to see this. And I know it's so uncomfortable to look at, because I know when people do, they want to immediately slip into guilt and shame. And I'm not asking you to do this. What I want you to see is that your body wants to be as healthy as it can for you. That is what it is designed to do for you. But it needs you to participate in this goal for it to accomplish that with you, not for you or against you. And what I see in a lot of the diseases that we're experiencing now is this element of resistance, distrust. And it's almost as if the body is choosing to fight back against us for how we are refusing to listen to it and to be in a relationship with it. Instead, we're constantly resisting it and trying to escape it in various ways, and we're acting as if the body as an organism isn't going to fight back. And I'm not saying that we go to the opposite extreme and just give up on having goals for how our body looks and its health. I'm not saying to not exercise or to not try to eat healthy. I'm saying quite the opposite. I'm saying that your body, when you stop over-consuming to escape your discomfort of being in it, and your body, when you stop starving it and over-exercising it to escape your discomfort of being in it, when you stop all of that resistive behavior and slow down and start to listen to it, start to reconnect with it, it's going to tell you exactly what it needs and wants from you to be healthy. It's going to tell you that. But you've been so busy trying to resist it that you've forgotten almost what its voice even sounds like. So even if it did speak to you, it's like you wouldn't even hear it. It's just become background noise. So the thing is, there's some really amazing news here. And it's something that I've been working on with myself and so many of my clients. I've been finding tools, practices, insights that work and reconnecting people with their bodies. Reconnecting them in a way that restores health by restoring the communication, the trust, and the balance in that relationship of a person with their body. And what it's caused me to do is to look at this idea of look good, feel good, and flip it. Feel good, look good, which is the title of this podcast. I want to introduce you to this concept today. That's what this is here. That's why I'm wanting to discuss this with you guys. And I know we've already talked about a whole lot, and we really dove into some heavy stuff here. And I think it's so necessary because it's uncomfortable to talk about, and we need to be willing to look at the uncomfortable stuff. We need to be willing to move through that, because the answer is not in looking away from it. It is moving through it. Okay? So this concept is one that for every human in our biodiversity of our bodies as an organism, it's going to apply to everyone a little bit differently. So the feel good, look good. And it's something that I want us as humans to start considering and embracing. It's the diversity of our bodies and in our relationships with them. So this isn't a concept that I can fully teach you in the podcast, but I can give you some of the nuts and bolts of where it starts, what it looks like when you choose to put in the work. And that's what I'm going to introduce you to now. Although the work is going to look different from person to person, I'm going to introduce you to just kind of like the process here. So it starts with reconnection. It starts with building that trust again with your body. And there are practices like meditation, breath work, mindfulness. These are a few and probably three of I would say the biggest practices used in the area of helping people to reconnect with their bodies. And it's helpful for so many. So reconnecting and choosing to build trust requires that we also start to address the inner dialogue, which means how we talk to ourselves, how we talk to our bodies, and also how we choose to talk about our bodies to ourselves and to other people. And taking notice in the places where we speak about it with resistance, frustration, or disgust. I want you to imagine your body as if it were a person that you truly cared about. And we've talked about this in a previous episode, how when we love someone, it's honesty first. And I think a lot of us, as I addressed in that podcast where I talked about this, we think that honesty means we have to be mean, but that's not the truth. Honesty is complete openness and responsibility in how we're creating the relationship with this person. So, I want you to imagine that your body is someone that you truly care about and you're willing to be open and honest with them and your responsibility and how you are creating your relationship with it. And I want you to think then, when you find yourself talking about your body, would you speak to a person that you love and trust in this way? I'd say most of the times no. A lot of the things that we say about our bodies and to our bodies, we wouldn't say to someone that we truly cared about and loved. So I want you to consider, how would you say those things differently? Start treating your body in conversation, both internally and externally, as if it was the most precious and closest friend that you have. Because guess what? It is. It is the most precious and closest friend that you will have. And it's the one that you have had since the moment you were conceived and will have until the moment that you leave this life. And so, from that space of addressing the reconnection and the dialogue of how we talk to our bodies, then what we do is we choose practices that feel good for our bodies. And I want to give a side note here. I don't mean the kind of feel good that most of us have grown accustomed to, calling feel good, which is numbing our body connection with food and alcohol. I know that a lot of us have started associated that with what feels good, because the reason why you believe that's what feels good is because your relationship with your body is so dysfunctional, and you believe you can't repair it, that you're so uncomfortable in that relationship, it has become so unbearable that you feel like numbing that relationship feels better to you. So you call that feeling good, but that's not the feeling good that I'm talking about here. It's not the feeling good that I'm referring to. I'm referring to the feel good that happens when we truly connect with our body and listen to it and what it needs. Not what we need to get away from our connection with our body because we're uncomfortable with our body. So it's time to start building that inner dialogue of love, trust, openness, honesty, balance, and communication, and turning it into actions that we then choose to take for that relationship with our body, to help it thrive, to help it create health for us and with us. And you see, when we get there and we feel the goodness of being in that relationship with our body, then we can start looking in the mirror and start to address the image of it. The image that we hold of it in ourselves. And here's where the magic really starts to happen. You see, here we choose the intention to start looking at it. Remember the definition of looking is with intention. So we look at it with the lens of joy, of abundance, of love, of celebration, of fascination, of curiosity, of awe. We start to direct our gaze in order to intentionally see that we look good. Because remember the definition of the word look. You see, we've been accepting it for so long as if it's this passive action. But it's actually a very active action. We look for something. So if you are looking in the mirror to find that you are not enough yet, or that you need to be better, or that you need to be thinner, or need to be more muscular, or need to be leaner, then guess what you will see? Exactly what you're looking for. So, once we learn to connect with the body and feel good in it and with it, then we take the dialogue and we put it into the practice of taking actions. And then from that balance, that love, that connection, that communication, that symbiosis with our body, we look at it with good. We look for the good in what we see in it. Feel good, look good. You feel good, and then therefore you look at it with good and see good. When I take care of my body and my relationship with it, I feel good. And when I feel good about that and how I'm showing up for my body and how it's showing up for me, then when I look in the mirror with that same love, openness, connection, curiosity, teamwork, and balance, all of that, I look good at it in the mirror. I look at it with good, and therefore I see it as looking good to me. I know this feels like a big step for a lot of you to wrap your mind around. And maybe it feels right now that it's impossible, but I promise it's possible. I know it feels hard and like a huge step, and that's okay. There's really nothing wrong with the fact that it feels that way. There's nothing wrong with you, and you're not too far gone. I've heard this so many times from people where they say, I'm just too far gone. I'm a lost cause. And I know it feels scary to consider. There's a lot of programming within you to address. But here's what I can promise you. It can all be looked at with intention. It can all be addressed, and your relationship with your body can be healed. I've seen it. You are not broken and you're not too far gone. Trust me. Trust me. I've guided so many people who believed that they were too broken and too far gone, and I've guided them into starting this work. And now I see these people celebrating their bodies, and they're doing it in this beautiful way. I've seen this happen far too many times to believe that any one of you out there listening to me right now is too far gone or too broken to choose this path and to heal your relationship with your body and start living a life of health. I do not believe you. I don't believe you if you think that you're too broken. As a matter of fact, I go so far as to say I know you're not too broken or too far gone. And I know you're used to looking out there to find a socially acceptable image of what looks good, and then looking for how you are not that yet, and then trying to resist your body into looking like that so that you're allowed to feel good. It doesn't work. It will never work. I can tell you firsthand, and from so many friends of mine that were in the bodybuilding world that I've talked to. Very few people can look like a bodybuilder naturally. Very few. So why is it that we've made that our universal standard of what looks healthy? Why are we making this extreme minority the standard image of health for us and for everyone? And what I want to also say is that many people who do achieve that look, who I know and that I've spoken to, most of the men and women that I meet and I talk to who have achieved this perfect body according to the 2021 look, when I talk to them on the inside, they are dying to feel good. They still want to feel good about themselves. They want to feel happy with themselves. They want to finally feel like they're good enough. And they want to be able to stop resisting themselves so much. Most of them tell me this. Most of them will say, I look in the mirror and I see the body and I just hate myself. I hate myself so much for what I had to do to get it. And I hate the fact that I know that I'll have to keep doing it to keep it. And that I'll have to keep doing it to make it better because I still don't enjoy it. And in fact, when I look at it, I just see more work that needs to be done. My friends, I promise you, getting there to that body is not going to make you happier. These people that you're looking at on these magazines with these ripped bodies aren't happier than you. And I'm going to say they're not the image of health. There are very few people on this planet that look like that when they're being connected with their bodies in a healthy way. And many of these people are secretly struggling with so many issues with their digestion, with depression, with anxiety, with bone and joint issues, with skin issues, with reproductive issues, because their hormones are so out of whack. So why is it that we're fighting so hard to hold on to this image as being the example of health, when in fact it's not the image of health for the vast majority of people? In fact, it's the image of unhealthy for the genetic makeup of most people's bodies on this planet. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that not a single bodybuilder out there is happy or healthy. So if that's what you're hearing, that's not what I'm saying. So don't hear that. What I'm trying to say here is that if we look at nature and its diversity, the diversity in nature, I want you to recognize that the human organism is just as diverse. And only a small percentage of the population falls into the category that their bodies look like this image when they are in communication, love, balance, and harmony with their bodies. The rest of us are just resisting our body and its health to try and look like that for the sake of health. That's so ironic. And we're doing it so that we can feel good about ourselves and with ourselves. But the truth is, we won't feel healthy and we won't feel good about ourselves or with ourselves because we're actually resisting our health and ourselves in the process. And I want us to ask ourselves, why? Why do we want to continue down this path? Do we really want to continue down this path? Do you want to find out what it's like to build back that relationship with your body and truly feel good in it? And from there, learn how to see good in how you look at it. Feel good, look good. Connect with the body, build your relationship back with the body, and find out what it needs and wants from you for it to feel good and healthy. And then do that. And from there, look in the mirror for and with good, and therefore you will see that you look good. That's my philosophy. And it's what I'm finding more and more when I take this approach, that it truly works in finding health and finding a way to feel and look good in your body. And so, okay, I don't want to leave you all without a single practice to take. I don't want this to just be a rant, so I want to leave you with a practice that you can start trying to connect with your body and start putting some energy back into your relationship with your body. And I call these affirmative thoughts. And these are quite easy to implement. And what I need you to do here is you need to pick thoughts that you believe, though. Because if you don't believe them, then they're actually going to end up having the opposite effect of building that trust. They're going to build distrust because you're going to know that you're lying to yourself. So if you feel resistance to these thoughts, then I don't suggest starting here. I would suggest starting somewhere else and then working to affirmative thoughts, because affirmative thoughts don't work for a lot of people. But this is a practice that I find does work for a lot of people. And for the sake of a podcast, I'm going to give it here because it's something that's easy to implement. So consider these thoughts. And if you feel that some of them resonate with you, then I encourage you to start taking time daily to practice thinking them. Practice thinking them in the morning when you wake up, in the evening before you go to bed. And also I want you to practice using them anytime during the day that you feel yourself starting to either speak to your body critically or judge it critically. Okay, so here are some thoughts. This body was designed just for me and my journey in this life. This is my body, and we will be together until the end. My body wants to work with me and for me. My body and I are deeply connected and trust each other. This is the body that I get to experience life through and with. This body desires to experience life and health through me, and I am here to care for it and experience life through it. This body and I are a team. This body was chosen for me, and every experience that we have together is meant for me. Okay? So I want you to try those thoughts out. Any one of them that might resonate with you, or come up with your own. Take some of these and change them around a little bit. I recommend sitting or lying down on the ground and putting one hand on your belly and one hand on your heart while you say these affirmations to yourself and to your body. It sort of helps you to be more connected with your body while you're saying it. So one hand on the belly, one hand on the heart. I usually lay on the ground flat while I'm doing this, but you can also sit down and do this. And I want you to, while you're doing this, I want you to feel your body responding to the words, to your intentions, and to your touch. Feel that. Feel it wanting to communicate back with you. And then from that space, I want you to move back into your day, keeping the door open for your body to keep communicating. Now, a lot of us have built a lot of distrust with our bodies, and it's going to take some time in doing this over and over again to keep that door open. And don't get frustrated. This is part of the journey. There's nothing wrong with that. That's beautiful. You get to spend so much time reconnecting with your body and building that relationship. That's a powerful bond to build, and it's beautiful building it. I want you to remember that your body is there for you and you for it. If you try out any of these affirmative thoughts, I would really, really love to hear your experience of trying them. Because I think so many people have such varying experiences, and I think that they're all really, really fascinating. So feel free, if you want, leave your stories of trying these out either in the comments below, or you can contact me via email or on Facebook or Instagram. All of that's linked in the show description. My email is slusk.health@slch.ch, so you can email me there. Or like I said, leave your experience in the comment section below the podcast. I really would love to hear these things, because some of the stories are just so beautiful. So share away, please. I'm really here, open and ready to listen. All right. So, my friends, we touched on a lot of really deep areas today. What I want to say is you are not alone if this hit home for you. If you feel like I spoke to you directly today, I want you to know I spoke from my own personal experience. And I've also spoken from experiences that I've had with people that I've spoken to. So what I want you to recognize is that there is no need for guilt or shame here, okay? You really are amazing. You are amazing. If you want that relationship with your body that I spoke about today, I'm here to help. So I really want to encourage you. Let's open the doors on this issue, okay? Let's stop hiding. Choose courage. Find help here. Find help. Be the example for those around you who are they're too afraid to speak up and get help. Be the example for them. I'm here to say that I personally fought with this for years. And I still work on this daily with myself. I don't want you all to get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that I never have a negative word that I speak about myself or my body to myself or to someone else, or that I never have a thought about my body that I see as destructive. I'm not trying to say that. But what I'm saying is I've made these things a habit. I've begun the habit of intentionally rebuilding my relationship with my body and its healing. I come across daily moments where I notice my body not wanting to trust me. I really do. And when I notice this, I just choose to become still with it. And I make contact, and I take full responsibility in creating that distrust. I let my body know I take full responsibility for that. And then I choose compassion and love for my body. And then I choose to take my body by the hand and I reassure it that it has every right to not trust me here. But if it is willing, then I am willing to do what it takes to repair the trust here. And I'm asking you to do the same with your body. That's what I'm asking you to do here. I'm not saying this is an overnight, just you make the choice and you wake up tomorrow and your image of your body is going to be perfect and your relationship with your body is just going to be perfect. No, this is a journey, my friends, and it's a beautiful journey to be on. It's not a beautiful destination that we're going to. It's a beautiful journey, and I want you to begin this journey. And we take this journey step by step, day by day, letting go of old patterns and thoughts and creating new ones together with our body. So what I want to offer here is that if you think that I can't relate to you and some of the thoughts you might be having or the things that you say or think about your body, I promise you I can. In so many ways I can relate. I don't think you're bad, I don't think you're wrong, I don't think you're broken, and I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to lift you up. I'm here to empower you. And what I want to do is show you how you have what inside of you, what you need to restore your health and to reconnect with your body. That's what I'm here to do. And the door is open. The door is open. So step up, have the courage, ask for the help. My hand is out, and I'm ready to receive anyone's hand who wants to take it. Okay? So get help, even if it's not with me. with someone else. Get the help, my friends. If this hit home, if it sounded like it was talking to you, it was. If it sounded like I was talking directly to you, I was. And I love you, okay? I love you all. And I love all of your bodies and all of the diversity in them. And I want you all to start doing the same for yourselves, okay? I love you all. I'll talk to you again next week. Ciao. Hey, thank you for listening in this week. I hope you enjoyed the content of this episode. If you did, please subscribe or follow this podcast to receive the newest episodes every week as I bring them to you here on the Connect Your Health to Life coaching channel. Ratings, reviews, and comments are always appreciated. These allow me to know more of what my listeners would like in the podcast and allow for more people who may be searching for a podcast just like this one to find the Connect Your Health to Life coaching channel. If you would like more information about me and the work that I do with my clients one-on-one, then please visit my website at www.slch.ch. Again, that is www.slch.ch. You can also find me on social media on Instagram at SethLusk_coaching. Again, that is SethLusk_coaching. And on Facebook in my free Facebook group community called A Healthy Life Connection. We would love to have you in the group, and it's only 3 membership questions that you have to answer to join. And again, it's entirely free. And if you need any further information or just want to say hello, feel free to send me an email directly at slusk.health@slch.ch. Again, that is slusk.health@slch.ch. Thank you again so much for listening, and I look forward to our next time together. Ciao.